We have already started feeling the adverse effects of global warming. Forests have been devastated due to the rise in population of pine beetle, which expanded due to the lack of severe winters. Forests are also at high risk of catching fires. There has been a fourfold increase in forest fires. The amount of carbon dioxide released due to these bog fires has resulted in fuel combustion. It has been observed that over the past couple of decades, birds and butterflies have shifted their range northward by 200 kilometers in Europe and North America. Global warming has also had a devastating effect on health. The incidence of cardiovascular diseases has increased due to increased ozone in the atmosphere. Lung tissues are damaged, leading to asthma. Hence, the mortality rate, too, has been affected. This global warming has led to a higher rate of dengue and malaria cases. These insect-borne diseases are on the rise, and the World Health Organization is working hard to eradicate them through vaccines.
The choice of stroke depends on how near the shuttlecock is to the net, and whether it is above net height. Players have much better attacking options if they can reach the shuttlecock well above net height, especially if it is also close to the net. In the forecourt, a high shuttlecock will be met with a net kill, hitting it steeply downwards and attempting to win the rally immediately. In the mid-court, a high shuttlecock will be usually met with a powerful smash, also hitting downwards and hoping for an outright winner or a weak reply. Athletic jump smashes, where players jump upwards for a steeper smash angle, are a common and spectacular element of elite men's doubles play. In the rear court, players strive to hit the shuttlecock while it is still above them, rather than allowing it to drop lower. This overhead hitting allows them to play smashes, clears, and drop shots. If the shuttlecock has dropped low, then a smash is impossible, and a full-length high clear is difficult.
You vote for politicians based on their views, right? That's how it works in theory. But other factors can sway your vote, like a politician's voice. Because studies show that the deeper the voice, the more electable the candidate. And not just for men. Deeper voice women have an advantage over other women, even when they're running for positions traditionally held by women, like the school board or PTA president. So says a study in the journal PLOS ONE. Researchers played undergrads recordings like this.
I urge you to vote for me this November. I urge you to vote for me this November.
Then they asked the students to vote for one of them for the school board or the PTA. In each mock election, the deeper voice woman snagged about 70% of the votes. Women's voices naturally deepen with age, so the researchers say we might be biased to select older women as leaders. And previous studies have shown that women with deeper voices are seen as more competent, trustworthy, and strong. Margaret Thatcher used that to her advantage. She was famously coached to deepen her voice.
There's that woman ahead of him again.
Other politicians might do well to follow her lead when they make their pitch to voters.
Today, artificial intelligence helps doctors diagnose patients, pilots fly commercial aircraft, and city planners predict traffic. But no matter what these AIs are doing, the computer scientists who designed them likely don't know exactly how they're doing it. This is because artificial intelligence is often self-taught, working off a simple set of instructions to create a unique array of rules and strategies. So how exactly does a machine learn? There are many different ways to build self-teaching programs, but they all rely on the three basic types of machine learning: unsupervised learning, supervised learning, and reinforcement learning. To see these in action, let's imagine researchers are trying to pull information from a set of medical data containing thousands of patient profiles.
Cigarettes are bad for your health, but that's only if you smoke them. If you use them to line your nest, they might actually do you some good, because birds that decorate their digs with discarded cigarette butts are less bothered by parasites. That's according to a new study in the Royal Society journal, Biology Letters. When building a nest, birds tend to make do with the materials at hand, or at beak. Twigs and leaves are popular choices, but what about city birds? Some reach for cigarettes, or at least the fluffy white fibers found in their filters. Scientists got to wondering whether this habit might provide the birds benefits, other than comfy bedding. So they grabbed the nests of finches and sparrows that were living on the campus of the National University of Mexico. That's in the heart of Mexico City. And they found that the nests that were festooned with the most filter fiber had the lowest number of mites. Could be that the little bloodsuckers are turned off by nicotine. Or maybe they've heard about the dangers of secondhand smoke. But for the birds, a bud a day might just keep mites away.
It takes a Y chromosome to make a man, but that doesn't mean its counterpart, the X chromosome, plays no part. In fact, it has a big role in making sperm. To study X evolution, researchers first sequenced the human chromosome more accurately than ever before. Then they compared the code to that of a mammal whose evolutionary lineage split from ours about 80 million years ago, the mouse. It turns out that humans and mice share 95% of their X genes. This finding was no surprise. In the 1960s, biologist Susumu Ono suggested the X chromosome would evolve slowly, and thus remain similar in most mammalian species. But some things did change over evolutionary time, or rather, 144 things. 144 human X chromosome genes had no counterparts in mice, and these genes seem to be constantly developing. Many of the genes remain dormant in females, only becoming active in tissues involved in sperm production. The study is in the journal Nature Genetics. Clearly, the X chromosome exceeds its feminine responsibilities, which is excellent news for male fertility.
Fluoride helps fight cavities. That's why it's in our drinking water and toothpaste. But how this mineral works its dental magic is still somewhat mysterious. Now, researchers offer an incisive solution. They find that fluoride treatment can loosen bacteria's grip on tooth enamel. The study's in the journal Langmuir. Scientists used to think that fluoride could harden tooth enamel, helping it retain the minerals that protect teeth from the acid produced by our oral flora. But recent work has shown that fluoride doesn't really penetrate past the tooth's thinnest outer layer, suggesting that something other than hardening is going on. To drill deeper into this toothsome mystery, researchers whipped up a set of artificial choppers, made of the same stuff as teeth, and they used atomic force microscopy to take a closer look at how bacteria interact with this dental material. They found that 3 different strains of cavity-causing bugs cling less tightly to enamel that's been rinsed with fluoride. The bacteria carry a net negative charge on their surfaces, so the negatively charged fluoride ions in the treated enamel may be literally repulsive to the bacteria, which encourages them to bite the dust.
Black mamba is one of the world's most venomous snakes. Its bite can kill a human in just half an hour. But along with deadly neurotoxins, the black mamba's venom has a special ingredient, a painkiller as potent as morphine. So says a study in the journal Nature. Researchers isolated proteins from mamba venom called mambal genes and injected them into mice. Then they tested how long it took those mice to yank their paws out of water heated to a painful but not damaging 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Turns out mice treated with mambal genes could take the heat for just as long as mice dosed with morphine, indicating the 2 drugs had similar pain-relieving effects. Morphine works by binding opioid receptors, but mambal genes target a completely different pain pathway, which is a good thing, because they don't slow down breathing like opiates, and the body doesn't build up tolerance to mambal genes as fast as it does to morphine, meaning mambal genes could keep the pain away for longer. The French company 𝗬𝗀 is now developing a drug from the venom. Just don't call it snake oil.
How can you tell the difference between a French baby and a German baby? No, it's not that one is wearing a saucy little beret while the other is tucked into a tiny pair of lederhosen. Well, maybe that's part of it. But a new study in the journal Current Biology shows that the babies actually sound different because the melody of an infant's cry matches its mother tongue. We all know that babies start eavesdropping while they're still in the womb, so when they come out, they know their mother's voice. When they're older, they start to imitate the sounds they hear. Eventually they babble, and then start to speak, and then you never hear the end of it.
Hey, Mom!
But long before that first burble or coo, babies are learning the elements of language. A team of scientists recorded the cries of 60 newborns, 30 born into French-speaking families, and 30 that heard German. And they found that French infants wail on a rising note, while the Germans favor a falling melody. Those patterns match the rhythms of their native languages. So next time you hear a baby cry, listen closely. He could be telling you where he's from.
Every year, foreign governments and other overseas entities spend about $500 million trying to influence American policy, according to the Project on Government Oversight. The Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, enables researchers to track their spending and sway. The federal law was adopted in 1938 when Congress was worried about Nazi propaganda in the United States. It was updated in 1966 to cover activities more broadly political. Today under FARA, which is run by the U.S. Department of Justice, lobbyists and other organizations are required to regularly declare their relationships with foreign principals, their meetings, payments, as well as the informational materials they use to influence policymakers, such as presentations, email correspondence, even draft legislation. Much of the documentation is available on the FARA website, though there are holes in both the legislation and implementation.
Ants are known for working together, operating as a unit for the good of the colony. But not so fast, say researchers from the universities of Leeds and Copenhagen. It turns out that ants can scheme like a stage mom. Scientists say that some ants hide out to ensure that their offspring become childbearing queens instead of barren workers. The accepted hypothesis had been that random ants were fed certain foods that would allow them to develop into queens. But DNA tests on 5 colonies of leaf-cutting ants revealed that certain males have a better genetic chance of producing royal progeny. Scientists believe these rare males stay anonymous, and thus avoid any problems with other ants that might otherwise lose their all for one attitude. In fact, the number of males carrying royal genes to those who aren't may have settled at a low ratio through evolution, which cobbled together the best way for the ant gene pool to expand, while at the same time keeping the lucky males hidden from their possibly jealous rivals.
I think the importance of creativity today really reflects a fundamental shift in the nature of the economy. You know, in the old days, wealth was created because in the industrial era, you manufactured something, you got economies of scale, you had long production runs, you were really efficient. You know, you could get a Model T any color just so long it was black, right? So there was standardization. And there was a whole set of assumptions about how to manage, how to create an organization, you know, a typical kind of hierarchical organization to make sure that things ran smoothly. Well, that may be great for a relatively stable era of history, relatively stable, but now things are fundamentally unstable. And so we need less economies of scale and more economies of discovery, which means that the management approach, the organizational approach, has got to shift as well.
By way of introduction, Joseph Heller, the author who introduced the phrase catch-22 into the English language, died on December 12th at the age of 76 in his home in East Hampton, New York. In 1961, Heller published his first novel, Catch-22, a surreal anti-war story set in World War II. Heller's protagonist, a fighter pilot, comes to understand that a man deemed insane by the military bureaucracy may be released from duty. The catch-22 of Heller's title is that when a man recognizes his condition, he is no longer insane. Heller spoke at numerous college campuses throughout the 60s, and catch-22 seemed to capture the anti-war sentiment of many protesters during the Vietnam War.
Even in the 1940s, it was easy to see how time would soon expand the economist's horizons. The link between security and poverty logically applied to developing countries as well as the developed ones, and the statesmen of the time could see this. The economic health of every country is a proper matter of concern to all its neighbors, near and distant.
In January 1788, the anchors of the sea-battered ships of the First Fleet rattled down into the sparkling waters of Sydney Cove, and 780 of England's most unwanted were herded ashore by their guards, British Navy Marines. The convicts were bullied into some semblance of order to view the raising of the English flag, as Australia became the farthest outpost of the largest empire the world has ever seen.
Heritage is what the present chooses to make of the past. That means that heritage is dynamic. It's a changing concept. And it also means that it tends to be defined in opposition to much that is going on in the present. It's endangered. Where there is heritage, there is often a sense of threat. You know, whether it's a building that's about to be bulldozed or a way of life that is dying out because of economic change. The heritage that we speak about in this country in terms of conservation tends to be a term that becomes very central or more central in new ways as the state becomes involved in this field of administering conservation.
The idea is that we divide the ward, the patients if you like, and the nurses into 3 different teams, which are called primary nursing teams. And in those teams you then have primary nurse, which is myself, associate nurses, which generally tend to be D-grade nurses, and healthcare assistants. And you're all in one team together. The idea is that you would hopefully work as a team in coordinating the care for the patients who come in under your care as in the red team. In our teams we have 8 patients each. The idea would be that I would normally prescribe the care or plan the care for those patients. In reality, it doesn't always work like that, and besides which, the associate nurses that are in the teams have those skills anyway from their training.
Did you hoist a few on New Year's? Of course, getting together with friends over a few adult beverages has a long history. Here's the University of Cincinnati's Kathleen Lynch on the Ancient Greek Symposium.
And the symposium is an all-male drinking event. It's a time where a small group of men get together, usually at the home of a friend, and the focus is on drinking. And so they may have had some food earlier, but the focus is on drinking together. And the drinking together forms bonds.
On January 7th, Lynch lectures at the meeting meeting of the Archaeological Institute of America on the types of cups used at symposia over the centuries and how they give us clues to what was going on in Greece at particular times. As for the symposium, it had a couple of definite rules. First, participants reclined and arranged themselves in a circle or square. There was thus no obvious head of the table, and everyone involved had an equal status. Second, everyone drank together in rounds, so everyone got drunk at about the same rate. This communal and equitable inebriation led to a common loss of inhibitions and the building of, well, a fraternity. Did you hoist a few on New Year's? Of course, getting together with friends over a few adult beverages has a long history. Here's the University of Cincinnati's Kathleen Lynch on the ancient Greek symposium.
And the symposium is an all-male drinking event. It's a time where a small group of men get together, usually at the home of a friend, and the focus is on drinking. And so they may have had some food earlier, but the focus is on drinking together. And the drinking together forms bonds.
On January 7th, Lynch lectures at the meeting of the Archaeological Institute of America on the types of cups used at symposia over the centuries and how they give us clues to what was going on in Greece at particular times. As for the symposium, it had a couple of definite rules. First, participants reclined and arranged themselves in a circle or square. There was thus no obvious head of the table, and everyone involved had an equal status. Second, everyone drank together in rounds, so everyone got drunk at about the same rate. This communal and equitable inebriation led to a common loss of inhibitions and the building of, well, a fraternity.
Hillary is undecided. Obama and McCain both passed, but the scientific community is committed to staging a candidates' debate about science and technology. They want straight talk on political buzzwords like climate change and stem cells, as well as less discussed issues like funding for basic research and the National Institutes of Health. What started as citizens worried about the U.S. losing its edge is now a movement called Science Debate 2008. An article in the current issue of the journal Science claims that by 2010, 90% of the world's scientists and engineers will live in Asia, where research is well funded. The authors say the U.S. needs to keep up because science and engineering drove half of America's economic growth over the last 50 years. Science Debate 2008 had to cancel a debate before the upcoming Pennsylvania primaries because candidates wouldn't commit. Now plans are already in the works for Oregon, where primaries are set for May 20th. It's proof, the journal article says, that scientists can be quickly organized when motivated. If only politicians shared that motivation.
Schizophrenia is a severe, chronic, and disabling brain disorder. Schizophrenics need ongoing psychiatric and psychological treatment. People with schizophrenia have perceptions that are strikingly different from others. Their behavior may seem odd, bizarre, and eccentric at times. They suffer from hallucinations and illusions, i.e., they hear voices and see things that actually do not exist, or at least are not physically present.
In fact, one of the major issues concerning us is the issue of climate change. Climate change is any long-term significant change in the average weather that a given region experiences. Average weather may include average temperature, precipitation, and wind patterns. It involves changes in the variability or average state of the atmosphere, and wind patterns over durations ranging from decades to millions of years. These changes can be caused by a dynamic process on Earth, external forces including variations in sunlight intensity, and more recently by human activities.
The point where the earthquake rupture originates is called the hypocenter, or the focus on the point directly above this on the ground is called the epicenter. Depth of the hypocenter is known as the focal depth. Hypocenter usually lies deep down on the fault. The intensity of an earthquake is the highest at the epicenter. If an earthquake could be accurately predicted, one could make some preparation to avoid any loss caused by this terrifying phenomenon. However, prediction with a measure of precision is not all that easy.
Our skin tells us about our surroundings by detecting temperature, pressure, and other external conditions. If a pot handle is too hot to touch, we can feel this heat before burning our hand. Robots may someday have this protection too. A team of researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, has developed a large area sensor network integrated into a thin plastic film that acts like an electronic skin. They demonstrated the concept with an e-skin sample about the size of a postage stamp that lights up in the specific places it's touched. The work is in the journal Nature Materials. The harder the e-skin gets pressed, the brighter the light. The researchers envision that flesh and blood users could have an e-skin smart bandage that monitors wounds. A large sheet of the material covering the wall of a room could even operate like a display screen, and a robot with such a surface could more effectively interact with its environment. Of course, we don't want our robots to be too sensitive. Then they might balk at cleaning up nuclear waste or spending years at a time alone on Mars.
A book a day may keep dementia away, even if you read it as a kid. Because a study finds that exercising the brain, at any age, may preserve memory. The work appears online in the journal Neurology. Previous studies have shown that engaging in brain-building activities is associated with a delay in late-life cognitive decline. But why? Does flexing the old gray matter somehow buffer against age-related intellectual impairment, or is cognitive loss simply a consequence of the aging brain's physical decline? To find out, researchers questioned nearly 300 elderly individuals about their lifelong participation in intellectual pursuits, like reading books, writing letters, and looking things up in the library. Then, every year, for an average of 6 years until they died, the subjects took tests to measure their memory and thinking. What the researchers found is that folks who worked their mental muscles, both early and late in life, remained more intellectually limber than those who didn't, even when a post-mortem look at their brains revealed the telltale signs of physical decline. So if you're headed to the beach, don't forget a hat and a book, both to protect your head. The mayor of New York famously tried to ban supersized sodas. But instead of legislating a drink's volume, maybe we should change its name, because a new study shows that the words we use to describe portion size affect how much we actually consume. The findings are in the journal Health Economics. As portion sizes at many restaurants grow larger, so do our waistlines. Of course, no one says we have to finish that 3/4-pound burger or chug an entire big gulp, but what determines when we lay down the fork and push away from the table? To find out, researchers led by Brian Wansink of the Cornell Food and Brand Lab served up some spaghetti. Some volunteers received a portion labeled regular. Others got a dish described as double size. Although both plates contained the same amount of pasta, people ate more when they thought their serving size was normal. Participants who thought they'd gotten the piggy-sized portion left 10 times more food on their plates. So if a big beverage were called, say, double the size of your stomach, maybe we'd think twice about draining every last drop. Sleep. There's nothing better than a nice, long, uninterrupted... I can't sleep when there's... But you ever notice, noise doesn't wake everyone. Now scientists have a better idea why. Because sound sleepers show a certain brain rhythm when they doze. Findings published in the journal Current Biology. To study the brain waves of a good night's sleep, scientists invited volunteers to snooze in the lab. While the subjects caught some Z's, the researchers monitored their brain activity. They then subjected the sleepers to more, and they found that those who were able to slumber straight through all the showed more short bursts of faster brain waves. This activity, the scientists say, is the brain's way of blocking out the and the while you're trying to rest. The scientists don't yet know of any way to boost those sleep-saving brainwaves, so until then, shut the door, make sure the late show's on a timer, and try to have sweet dreams.